When being interviewed sometimes around the early 50s, Chinua Achebe said, our people still have a long way to go. Many years down the line, most Africans think that indeed African unity is still very far-fetched. How truthful is that? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I'm not sure from where you could be watching me from. Please do stay with me to the end of this video. So I'll be elaborating some reasons why most people think that Africa still has a very long way to go as far as unity is concerned, which is not necessarily true. You know, especially in the French-speaking part of Africa before they had their independence, the so-called independence, of course, it was something that was a document that was called the Colonial Pact that the colonial masters had to draft since independence was snatched from them. It was a situation they could no more control. So in this colonial pact, there were some clauses, for instance, like the control of the French CFA that was imposed on them, French colonial currency. This currency was always supposed to be deposited. I mean, the African states, their reserves were supposed to be deposited in French treasury. When they get their money, just 15% is given to them. And should they need any more money back at home, they borrow not up to 25% of that money, in which interest is being considered. I'm saying this to let you remember that these so-called countries or states autonomous who sit in the UN and address the world as well. Then you see how unjust the debts that especially French-speaking African countries are wallowing into there. Okay, you go borrow your own money, and then there's interest on it. Another thing in that clause, or another clause in that colonial pact, was the fact that France had the exclusive right to train their army. Okay, train their army. And France had the right to any first natural resource ever discovered in these her so-called former colonial states. Should she not be interested in exploitation, then before another explorer could come in? You wonder why in a country like Central African Republic of recent, before President Theodora came to power, digging beneath 5 meters underground is considered encroaching into the French land. I need not remind you how much blood has flown on the streets of that part of Africa because of their natural resources. France, another clause on that colonial pact, had the right to invade any of our so-called colonies anytime should she think that her interest is being threatened in that colony, in that former colony. But they are still colonies up to now. You know why? And then France brought a system, a centralized system of government that made sure that industries were not planted in any of these colonies. Concentrate the people in the towns, leave the suburbs, get them away from nature so that they get concentrated and easily manipulated. I'll give you a few examples of how France has used this to its advantage. Somewhere around 2010, you see the French army that invaded the palace in Ivory Coast, took away a president or took a president that was chosen by the people and imposed another, killed thousands of people in a kind of genocide that the world decided to hide. Because, of course, genocides like that showed on social media just to propagate the fact that Africans are still animals who can resolve their conflicts only through war. It was the French army that had to go until they were seeing Gbagbo like 5 meters before they asked the Ivorian army to go get him as a criminal. The whole world saw it. What were the crimes of Laurent Gbagbo? Laurent Gbagbo decided that he was no more going to send any grain of his cocoa out of the borders of Africa for processing. Everything will be done in Africa. He was prior or 2 weeks to launching a currency of his own to go away from the diabolic franc CFA that is plaguing our people of poverty. Prior to that, Gaddafi has asked Gbagbo not to ever send any cocoa, that he was ready to buy all his cocoa around 2009 and stock it just here in Africa. You wonder why Laurent Gbagbo had to go? Thousands and thousands of Africans were killed in Ivory Coast in 2010. The same revolutionary ideas that Gaddafi wanted to bring is what had to take him out of the way, because he wanted to fight the monetary system that has been institutionalized by the world systems to especially keep Africa and the third world down. Some of the institutions, you know them very well. The World Bank, right? It is a World Bank. Does it have any branch in your country? The answer is no. Yet it is there to advise, give aid, subvent and give support to any project that will elevate the so-called third world to the level of the first world. But for how long has this institution been existing? All it knows is exploitation. All it knows is looting on an industrial scale. All it knows is causing war. When they come to Africa, they make sure that they divide us with tribalism, ethnicity, and make sure that when they spark the wars, we go fighting without even thinking that we are fighting ourselves. So that will make it easy for them to loot our materials and go away. That is what is happening in Cameroon today. That is what was the main cause of the Gukurahundi genocide in Zimbabwe. You remember the Rwandan 1994 genocide? It was all because of institutions like this. You know of another financial institution called the International Monetary Fund? They borrow money, give our politicians whom have been trained in their systems, inculcated with all kind of corruption. They come back home. They know very well that people are incapable of investing this money, especially industrially, to take their people out of poverty, since this poverty has been mechanized by them in order to subjugate the third world. They have to embezzle this money, go back to the same Switzerland that is supposed to be is a kind of moral country that is supposed to shun corruption or everything, but they go and hide money in that very country, Switzerland. And sometimes Europe has the God to think that she can teach some moral values to Africa. Now, when they borrow this money, the IMF borrow this money especially to our people, our politicians, they go buy guns with them to make war, financing them back while we remain in poverty. The debt keeps escalating exponentially. They don't come to open industries, no, they take it to buy guns fabricated by the same people who have made war an industry that will benefit them. my question is always, for how long are we going to continue like this? How long was the very long that Chinwe Achebe meant when he said our people still have a long way to go? Today you see the ICC, or the International Court of Justice, will have nobody to penalize should Africans decide to go away from the system. You know, victims have been criminalized in this institution. And perpetrators of evil go scot-free on the streets of their countries. Remember what happened in Iraq in 2004, right? The president of a country killed in broad daylight because he refused to sell his petrol in dollars. Saddam Hussein was killed by NATO. See the chaos that country is today. I don't have to go reminding you about Gaddafi. Now, the International Court of Justice thinks that George Bush is beyond some kind of, America, you know, he's an American, so nobody has any right to do anything with him because they are the world power. For how long will America and the West continue destroying this very world? My very stuff that really aches me is that we always want to play victim instead of standing on our knees, standing on our feet and dying. Because either way, whether you fight or you don't fight, there's an agenda to eliminate you black people. Or should I say Africans? Because it's no longer about black people, it's about an African. If you're an African, it is time you woke up, no matter where you are, how you see it, and do whatsoever your conscience convinces you, or you are convicted about that is the right thing to do to move Africa forward. After the 2010 genocide in Ivory Coast, Laurent Gbagbo was the one taken to the International Court of Justice. We all know that he won the election. He's been kept there for long, manipulated. When they saw that eyes of Africans were opening too much, they had to let him go. His president, they say, is there, Alassane Ouattara, who says the France CFA is their money and it is a very wonderful currency for them, manipulating elections, changing constitutions to favor them or him. But the United Nations, that is supposed to be a kind of surveyor in the world to ensure that justice goes with everyone, acclaims them or applauses what they are doing, or people like him are doing. Is it not time Africa thought about her own justice system? Remember great Robert Mugabe, who said that institutions like the ICC should be scattered out of Africa. Remember the Gagaka, Kinyarwanda justice system that followed after the 1994 Rwandan genocide. How it brought Rwanda. Look at where Rwanda is today. What you must know is that the institutions in place were put to subjugate the world. I'm talking about the International Court of Justice. I'm talking about the World Bank. I'm talking about the United Nations. Just recent, the youth of the Democratic Republic of Congo decided to chase the United Nations out of their country. You know what's happening in East Africa? Ebola is everywhere. These are biological weapons that have been made in the lab to kill our people. What I continuously ask is, for how long are we going to sit for our hands and be taken to the guillotine, to the slaughterhouses, one after the other, if at all they are merciful to avoid mass genocide, like they attempted with the COVID-19? I tell you a secret. It is not actually a secret, but something that it is. It is more glorious to fight and die on the battlefield than to die on your bed. Africans must wake up. Africans must be tired of working slavery in Europe and being killed at will in the United States of America. Africans must realize the age of Aquarium has come for the glory of Africa. Africans must realize that there is no man coming out of the skies to help Africa. It is up to the sons and daughters of Africa to make Africa emerge and take her place on the table of humanity. I tell you that your biggest enemy is ignorance. And this ignorance has been carefully put in our system, especially academic systems, the religion systems, supported by fear and guilt to subjugate us, to keep us at bay. Time has come, African child. Time has come to have a conversation standing in front of the mirror with yourself. Oh, your son, your daughter, your grandson or daughter go through what you are going through. I mean, through this mechanized, organized poverty that the patriarchal system of the world has made through capitalism, that a few minority of the world have abundant wealth, while about 80% of the world population go in abject poverty. You see, it was proven around 1978 that technologically the world is so advanced that it could make everybody live very happily and well fulfilled should they allow the distribution of goods and services for the global good of mankind. But the patriarchal systems of the world have decided to work against nature, to make war a kind of god, to subjugate the weak-minded. You see what is going on in Ukraine. That war, like a brief video I saw from Donald Trump of Russia, and he's a wonderful president whom America, but they could not recognize him. He said his world physics, even at the level of 3 or 4 years of studying so elementary physics, you understand that they did World War and they unleashed the power of the atomic bomb, the power of nuclear weapons the world now has. The earth will disappear into oblivion. That is the truth. But one man, I think that was Socrates, once said, the earth or the world will only go towards the path of progress when philosophers become kings and queens. We must fix our Africa. That is the truth. We are into some kind of economic slavery, and when people who really reason that the president of Central Africa who decided to adopt cryptocurrency, the main currency coin, Bitcoin, to their system, trying to evade or go away from the France CFA, they have manipulated it now and trying to ban cryptocurrency in the CEMAC zone. What you don't know is that the blockchain technology is bigger than even the entire French army or the NATO army can handle. You see what Mali is doing? Mali has decided to stand on her feet and make her own currency. Now, my question goes back to asking a giant country, if you must put it that way, like Cameroon, that what are you doing? Instead of showing an example, like standing in front, making your own currency in order to take away these other 14 members out of this devilish France CFA zone that has endorsed imported inflation in our markets. We are here busy killing each other. in the name of these ones are so-called Anglophones and the others are so-called Francophones. We're forgetting to know that we were Africans hundreds of years before the frustrated European showed up his face in 1652 in Africa. Son and daughter of Akel Bulan. I think you understand by now that the rate at which Africans are waking up, should you not join them to make history, you will only hear history. Time has come and the time is now. Together, let's build Africa. The youths are there ready. Women are there. I have often told you the patriarchal system has failed, and that is why our fathers have little or nothing to offer us. If you think it's a joke, go back and find the speech of the South African Foreign Affairs Minister at the UN recently passed General Assembly as she spoke. What happened to Africans or African head of states who went to Britain for the burial of the Queen of Britain? It was a lady, a woman, President Swede Walk of Ethiopia, who refused to be packed in a bus like a slave. She stood on her feet and had to use her own convoy. Oh, what do you think Nkrumah will be doing in his grave? What do you think great Magufuli John will be doing in his grave? He should be lamenting and regretting and accusing death of treason. We can do this. We can unite Africa. We can beat Africa. Because I tell you the truth, there is no way Africa can move forward without uniting. The language of the world, the only language the world understands is power. Africa is an enormous power, and should we use this to our advantage? A kind of advantage because we want to save humanity, because somehow only Africans really have the heart and that courage of Ubuntu to still act to an extent as human beings. When I'm talking about Africans, I'm not referring to those presidents or whosoever. No, these ones are lost. Just a few of them are conscious. We shall get there very, very soon. I just repeat this. Whatsoever you have to do, whatsoever you think you are convicted of to do about Africa, do it. Because only in a united Africa can we survive. We are motivated by our love for you and motherland. You are blessed.